Hi, and welcome to Life Skills with Louie. I'm Louie, and today we are talking about responding to ineffective actions and behavior. If you haven't watched the introduction to this section, Getting to Great, there are two introductions, one about mapping your experience and one about responding to your experience. I encourage you to watch both of those. And I also encourage you to watch the introduction to the entire video series, which talks about all the different sections and when to use them. And that'll be helpful for orienting you and giving you a sense of when to use different skills. To dive into responding to your actions, your behavior, there are two ways to respond to your actions. The first is if you're unclear about why you're behaving in a certain way and you want to learn more about it, the section called Connecting to Clear has a lot of very useful skills. Many times we are attached to certain behaviors and actions. We do them automatically. They're habits, they're patterns that are just within us. And they have meaning. They showed up there for a reason. And in order to either increase effective actions or decrease ineffective actions, looking at the Connecting to Clear skills may be really helpful for doing that. In regards to actions and behaviors we take, I talk about being effective or ineffective because there's no, as in the way I think about things, there's no right or wrong, good or bad behaviors. And they all happen for reasons. And as we're deciding which actions we want to do and don't want to do, it has to do with what our goals are. And that's a key thing that I focus on. And that has to do with the mindfulness skill of effectiveness, which you can go and look at if you'd like more information about that principle. So if you find that you are moving towards a certain goal, kind of a long-term vision, something you want more of in your life, and it's being affected by the fact that you're behaving in a way that doesn't work for moving towards that goal, you may find the Connecting to Clear section really helpful. And then you may find this skill we're going to talk about, opposite to emotion action, really helpful. So the skill of opposite to emotion action is from dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, and it's a very helpful skill. It's simple in a way to talk about, but then there's some complexity to it, but it's challenging to practice. The first thing I want to say at the beginning of this, and I'm going to say at the end too, is that the key to this skill is to practice gently. If you push this too hard and you force yourself to do something that your emotions don't want to do, it'll backfire and you'll end up finding yourself either slingshotting back to doing the behavior more or feeling emotionally upset and dysregulated because you forced yourself to do something. So the idea is never force yourself to do something or shift to something. There's a way to do it gently that I'll talk about now. So I like to use the metaphor with this of a caregiver and a child. So if a child is feeling a certain emotion, it's kind of driving them. Let's say that emotion is sadness and they're laying in their bed sad. The caregiver, if they come up to the child and they, hey, how you doing? Are you feeling sad? Okay, and kind of is with the child for a while, and then gently ask them, would you like to go have a snack? Or so to help them to move through that emotion, move out of that emotion. If they're gentle, just encouraging, suggest. Maybe they'll stay, they won't, but maybe the child say, okay, I'll go and have a cookie with you or something. That sort of energy, that gentle encouragement to move into a different space, a different emotional space, is what we're looking for, not any kind of force. So that's the key, which I'll mention at the end as well. So for opposite to emotion action, if the natural impulse that you're having from the emotion is not going to be effective for your long-term goals and opposite action is safe to do, you never want to push yourself to do something that's going to cause you harm or to be unsafe. then you can practice opposite action. Each emotion has a natural impulse, which I talk about in the mapping your experience about emotions, if you want to look at that to understand more about the natural impulse. And then there is an opposite to that impulse that you can learn to practice, which can be very, very helpful and really is necessary. We all do this to some extent. You can learn to hone it. What I'll say about these opposites is that these are not like set in stone for these emotions. You may find what it looks like for you is slightly different, but it gives a good starting point. And if you want more information about this skill, work with a therapist that does dialectical behavioral therapy, or you can look into learning materials on dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. In a nutshell, if you're feeling fear, the impulse is to move away from, to run from. And so the opposite action is to move towards gently what it is that you're feeling fear of. For anger, the impulse is to attack, to move towards. And so the opposite action would be to move away slightly. For the feeling of disgust, the impulse is to move away from because of a sense that it's poisonous, either physically or emotionally, socially. And if you decide it's not effective, then the opposite action would be to move towards gently. For envy, it's when you're kind of looking up to something and you want something that someone else has. And sometimes that's effective, but sometimes it's not effective. And so you would work to find gratitude. For jealousy, that is when you have something that someone else is sort of threatening or you feel threatened. And sometimes it's effective to be in that space. But if it's not, then the opposite would be to share. For love, it's about moving towards. And of course, many times that's effective, but sometimes the people or things we love are harmful to us because of past patterns. And so the opposite would be to move away. For sadness, the action that goes with sadness, the impulse is to become more inactive, lower energy, and the opposite would be to get active, accumulate positive experiences, and build mastery. Those are within the resilience skills, accumulate positive experiences and build mastery, but to become more active overall. For shame, which makes us want to hide, which is sometimes effective, hide parts of ourselves, the opposite action would be to make what is hidden public to safe people. So to share what you're hiding with safe people. For guilt, which the impulse with that is to apologize and repair and stop doing what you're doing. If you find that you're feeling guilty about something where no harm is actually coming to anyone or it's not effective to stay in that guilt, the opposite would be to keep doing the non-harmful behavior that sets off the guilt. And then finally, with joy, joy brings exuberance and excitement, and many times that's an effective energy. There might be times where it's not effective to give into that impulse fully, and so the opposite would be to settle and calm your energy. And finally, again, the key is to practice gently, having the energy towards your emotions of a loving caregiver that is present with the emotion and gently encouraging moving the impulse for action towards a different action than the impulse is naturally driving towards. If you do this extremely gently, you may find that a shift occurs in your emotion that's also natural and doesn't have any element of force to it. So there's a very powerful skill to practice, opposite to emotion action. As I said in the beginning, if you are looking to understand more about your actions in general, please check out the section of skills called Connecting to Clear. And always, 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 with opposite to emotion action, practice very gently and lovingly. Thank you.